Mic check, mic check. Welcome everybody to the first live stream for Boot Once. We are streaming live we're now streaming live basically a new customer build. Let me switch out my monitor here. Yeah, let me turn this on. We're building a new system today. Have all the parts here. The parts list I had up before the stream. Hopefully everybody saw it, but just in case, I'm just going to flip back over to that for a sec to show what we are building with. We're currently building a custom system. It's going to be a build that's going to take probably about 1 hour to 2 hours to complete. So just review the parts really quickly before we get started. Just give me 1 second. Let me just also start the recording. Where is my recording? Bear with me as this is my first live stream and I only know somewhat of what I'm doing. Okay, so this is the first build. The parts list right now as it stands, we've got a motherboard, Gigabyte H610M S2H, a RAM Corsair Vengeance 16 gigabyte DDR4 3200. The graphic card is an MSI Radeon RX 6500 XT. The power supply is an EVGA Supernova 550 watt 80 plus gold. The CPU is an Intel i5-12400F 12th gen CPU. The hard drive, which is an NVMe Western Digital Blue 500 gigabytes. The case itself is a Fractal Design 1000 black. So let me flip back over here. So show all the parts we've got going on. We've got here basically, we've got motherboard, graphic card, hard drive, RAM, the processor, the power supply, and the case, which is over here a little bit off to the right. To start with, we're going to start building the system with the motherboard first, so I'm going to just collect everything off of here. So just give me a sec, and let me just move everything that I don't need out of the way. Graphic card, power supply are the only things that we don't need. These are the things that we're going to install with first. You're going to need obviously a screwdriver, a battery, which I have totally forgot to put in. Be right back. And the battery, of course, for the screwdriver would help. And if I can get it into the slot, even better. Come on. Why are you fighting me? All right, there we go. Okay. So, just rearrange here a little bit. Let me also switch it back to the other camera. And that is the wrong way. There we go. So it's right side up for you guys. These are the things we're going to start with. And we're going to install. Let me unbox everything. I don't think it's very interesting to watch a box, so, but we'll just turn on me over there. So we're just going to unbox everything. Sorry if this is a little upside down, guys. I should have put the camera the other way. That's a mental note for next time. All right, I'll show you all the lovely stuff. I don't need this. Garbage. Directions, manuals off to the side, cables off to the side, I/O shield. So we're going to need the motherboard, the I/O shield, processor. That's the box. Okay, no box. And directions. Just put this out. And CPU. All right. Okay. Actually, I do need that box back. All right, so let's go scratch the table. Let's put it over here for a second. Let me just readjust the box. Just gonna build on top of the box. Keep it simple. I should have flipped this. All right, well, we've got basically, we're gonna install the processor, RAM, and hard drive. I'm going to flip it around this way. I can read upside down. Right now I just took out the CPU fan. We're going to use a regular stock cooler. This is just the one that comes with Intel. Most of our customers are okay with this because they don't need anything that, you know, the system is not being overclocked, or there's no real reason for the system to be overheating in any such situation. This will cool it fine. Some customers want to go for a little bit more. They can. They don't have to. And let me just get the socket out here. Socket cover, which I hate these things. There we go. Always keep your socket cover just in case you got to resell your unit. That's the socket cover. Processor. This is an Intel processor, so it doesn't have pins on the bottom. AMD will be going to the pinless situation later on, so if you wanted to see, it's just a regular processor with no pins. I don't know if that's going to focus. There we go. So, no pins. What you're looking for, though, on the processor itself is a little arrow, and the arrow is denoted right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's really... Where is the arrow? There's the arrow. It's on this side. So I guess, come on. Yeah, it's going to be a pain. This way. All right, it's probably too small to even see, but you don't have to take my word for it. There's an arrow on that side. You match it up to the arrow on the socket. Pop the processor in. Push down the retention clip. Push it all the way down. And click it in place. Garbage. Now, there's two different options here with the cooler. You can use the pre-applied thermal paste, or you could take this thermal paste off and you can put on your own thermal paste. Since this system is not really in an environment that's going to be really, really hot, or we're not really overclocking it again, or we're not using really a custom cooler, you could just go with the proper thermal paste at this point. If you want, you can up it with a better paste if you feel the need. But this paste lasts a good 3 years with no issue. I like to always put this the right direction. There you go, right side up. The Intel logo. And just push in, one side, other side. Go left and right. And just take this and plug it into the CPU header on the motherboard. Go populate that. And let's see, RAM should be next. this point, now we know why everybody opens up all their boxes ahead of time, right? All right, garbage. Take this off. It's Corsair Vengeance memory. It's DDR4. I have it the wrong way. There we go. I don't know if this is going to focus. Focus. Demo. There we go. DDR4 Vengeance memory. This is Corsair's memory. We use it because it's one of the most reliable. So always take the little sticker off before you install. Oops, the other way. Be sure to install your RAM the right direction. This little notch on it will make it easy so that you can't make a mistake. Take the RAM sticker off again. And same thing, same way, same thing. You repeat as many RAM sticks as you have. Some people may have 4, maybe some people may have 2. We recommend at least 2 RAM sticks for a machine, just to have dual channel mode. That's for DDR4. DDR5, when it comes out, you will not need to have anything to do with, actually it depends, dual channel will basically be built into DDR5 with one single chip, so you won't actually have to have dual channel for that to work. I'm just going to take out the I/O shield, but the I/O shield's for the case. I always take it out ahead of time because I always keep forgetting it. So that's why I'm putting it off to the side there, so I remember to do it. And we have the last bit, which is the NVMe, which is going to go down here on the motherboard, right in this slot here. I don't know if you can see this that well. Maybe. Right here. There's a little socket here that allows you, an M.2 socket that will allow you to put the hard drive in. So let's do the hard drive. Okay. Garbage. More garbage. All right, this is the NVMe, so we're just going to take that out. Pop this out. To get this into the socket, there's a little 2 notches. You just line up the notches and then you pop it in place. This motherboard doesn't have screws, so you just pull out the little knob. If it comes out, there we go. And slip it in place and then push down. Put the little thingy back over so it doesn't pop out, and now it stays in place, and that's where it's going to remain. Take all the garbage out of here. Okay. Now we're ready to put it into the motherboard. You want to do this, of course, first. You want to make sure that you have the entire motherboard ready to go first, because if you have the motherboard ready to go, then it's a lot simpler to install into the case. You won't have to be bending over the case all the time. So yeah, so we're ready to install. At this point, just let's put this off to the side a little bit. Let me get my tools out of the way, and we're going to just open up the case. We're going to bring the case downward so you guys can see everything, but for right now, this is the Fractal Design 1000. It's a little older case, but it's still good. Works good for most businesses or low PC expensive builds. You don't need a really expensive case for a business. Just kind of seems overkill, honestly. Even this is really overkill. And I'm talking to you from behind the case. This is very weird. All right, let's take off the side panels. Those out of the way. Store the side panels somewhere where they're not going to get scratched, because it is your case at the end of the day, right? So you don't want to scratch it. At this point, you can see that the inside of this case is pretty open for what we need. Let's just do this a little more. Let me get this out of the way. Yeah. Get this a little more into view here. Yeah, I'm going to turn me off so you don't see me, because you don't need to see me anyway. So this is the build. Let me straighten it out a little bit. Oh, this way. There we go. So the case itself, you're going to have the power supply up here, motherboard down here, and you're going to have all the front I/O panels connections for this right here. I'm going to take this off because it makes it a little easier to get at everything. You can also just cut this, and we're just going to undo this, unscrew here, unscrew this, and there's one more screw at the bottom. Not sure if you can see that. There you go. That needs to be removed, and this whole panel just slides out. There's the other way. There we go. You want to take that out just so you have more room to work with the motherboard and the power supply, etc. So also take your cables, just wrap them out of the way. Get them out of the way so you don't have to deal with it. I recommend that you do the power supply first in this type of case since it's on the top. This is the top part of the case. If you install the motherboard first, you're going to have a hard time because the power supply is going to be kind of in your way. Well, the motherboard's going to be kind of in your way to get the power supply in. So I would do the power supply first in this type of case. If the power supply is at the bottom of the case, then you can do a basic way of just saying, okay, I'm going to just put it in at the bottom later. You can do that at any time. It really doesn't matter. But in this case, since we're really working on a smaller case where the power supply is at the top, let's put that in first. Just got to open up the power supply box. Don't smack the case. Let me turn myself back on there. Okay. Put myself back to one. All right, so this is the power supply. That's a really huge box for this power supply. We don't skimp out on power supplies as much as a lot of other customers kind of skimp out. They try to save money any way they can. We don't do that on our power supply. You just end up with problems. They're going to spark out or they don't last as long, and then you end up with lots of issues. So we don't need returns and stuff to happen or have a service call because of a bad power supply. So try to avoid that at almost all costs. Don't cut myself. There we go. All right, power cord. All the little accessories that come with the power supply. There's a lot of accessories that come with power supplies. This one happens to be modular. So, all right. Okay. Oh, this one is modular. So you're going to see none of the cables are actually connected to the power supply. It's not semi-modular, it's fully modular. So you have all of the cables are disconnected. For our customers, most customers are not going to really care about this. I don't really care either too much because this is a case that is going to be closed up at the end of the day, and you're not really, there's no window. If there's a window, you would actually want to basically remove all the cables and not have so much of a cable mess. So this is probably overkill for this. Honestly, I don't think we really need this high end of a power supply for this, but I like the aspect of the 80 plus gold. It does offer a little bit better performance when they're at the higher end of running the system hard. So we're going to connect the cables we need, which we're going to need a motherboard cable and the CPU cable and the VGA cable, which is going to basically be right here. If you look at this here, you got focus. Come on, man! Canon cameras suck. Come on today, focus. Not going to focus. All right. Well, you're going to have to trust me that this is the motherboard. That's VGA 1 and 2. This is SATA 1, 2, and a peripheral, and this is the CPU connector. They're all labeled, so you just make sure to plug in the right ones on the right spots and don't plug in the wrong one. Now, on the cables, oh man, on the cables, Is it this way? That way. Come on, focus. On the cables, it says PSU. So that's the side that you'll be plugging directly into the power supply unit. That's what that stands for. So make sure to plug that side. They are directional, so make sure that you plug them in correctly. I think they're also, yeah, they're also keyed, so you can't really make a mistake. Do not use the incorrect power supply cables for your power supply. Make sure you're using the ones that came with your box. Don't share your power supply cables with other people, is pretty much my answer to that. If you're unsure, contact the manufacturer, get new cables. If you messed up and you have 2 or 3 power supplies sitting on a bench and you're not sure which one goes where. By the way, you really should have a garbage can when you do this too, because I have a mess going on over there. Alright, CPU connection, same thing. We're just connecting it straight into the power supply. And that's going to go to the motherboard eventually. And we need one for I think we need one for VGA. Let me check the graphic card if we need a VGA connection or not. Some graphic cards require a PCI Express connector. Some do not. All right, garbage. Let me get to this. By the way, if I'm going too fast for you guys or anything, if you have questions, please feel free to chat. You know, it's not a problem. I can answer stuff as we go. Open up this side. It comes with a whole bunch of manual crap. Not everybody needs all that. I put it off to the side for the customer. If the customer wants it, you guys get it. It's just most people just end up filing it into the garbage. Graphic card, let's take a look and see if it requires a power connector, which it does. Right there. Yep, there we go. Right here, there's a 6-pin power connector. So I hate this camera, and it will not want to focus. Come on. We gotta get closer. Wow, there we go. Okay, it's a little bit better. That's the 6-pin connector right there. So that means we're gonna have to connect that to the power supply. You want to do that before you put the power supply in, of course. And you're gonna find it. It's labeled VGA. Here we go. VGA. All right, this one doesn't say PSU on it, but it's the only one that adapts to it. So on one end, it's an 8-port connector, and then on the other side, it's your 6. So it has the 6 that way. You're not going to need that. Higher-end graphic cards, or I shouldn't say higher-end graphic cards, but ones that require more power are going to require this other pin here. So I really need to get a camera that does better focusing. You think with Canon this would not be a problem, but maybe this way. Come on, focus. I am like 2 inches from this lens. There we go. Not too much. All right, so this is basically your 6-pin with the 2 additional added if you need extra power. You also have another one that comes off of it if you need to connect another graphic card, or if your graphic card requires more than, it requires dual 8. You know, if you're looking at like a 3080 or a 3090, I think a 3090 requires both connectors. But we're not doing that. So let's connect up. Okay, now we're ready to put it, basically put it into the case at this point. So we can just take all of these cables, carefully slide it up, put it in place. Ooh. Obviously, you need to screw it in. It comes with 4 screws. plastic bag. Okay. Screwdriver. Okay, now, the side of the case, 4 screws just go into the 4 holes that basically are just there. You know, they line up, so if you can't really make a mistake here. They're the ones that basically line up with the back part of the case. Screw in, last one. To give you a little look at that, let me just see if I can lift this. There we go. Hopefully if we focus today, it will work. Come on. Come on, focus. Don't want to focus, do you? Maybe I should figure out how to do this in manual focus. Maybe I put the button. There we go. Ah, beautifully good. Push the button. All right, so 4 screws, and then basically there's an eco mode, and there's on and off. So this is your main on and off, and that's your eco. I usually leave the eco mode off. I let the customer know about the eco mode, but honestly, the eco mode to me is just basically, it saves a little bit of power. I don't think it really does anything. I mean, we really haven't done a full test on it, but I can imagine it's probably doesn't really do much in the way of saving anything. The system's actually, most of the newer hardware is good on its own. You really don't need to like go crazy with power saving settings to get it to work. You know, you can pretty much do everything without really fiddling with the settings too much. If you want to just save like, you know, a few watts of power here and there, then sure, go for it. But it's probably not going to add up too much. It's a little scratchy. All right, there's an accessory box with all of the accessories for the case. It is not that exciting, it's just some screws. That is a faceplate cover if you want to do like a CD-ROM or something like that. Is this a CD-ROM or a floppy drive? So old, that's way old. Out of here. Front of the case, you really don't need that. We're just going to go with the standard, you know, the standard 5 1/4 slugs in there, the empties. We have a speaker. We don't put the speaker on because that gets annoying. Everybody in their right mind hates this little speaker that beeps when the computer starts up. Rather annoying. So we're just not going to do that. If you noticed, I'm using a little tray here. This is just a magnetic tray, which now is sticking to everything because it's a metal. This is just a lifesaver because, you know, you got to dump out all your screws. You're going to want to make sure you get everything that you need. These are all the standoffs and screws. I need those. And we're going to need these screws that come with the system. For that, come on. And of course, already losing one. There we go. Right here. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to install these little standoffs. Oh, that works. All right. And these little standoffs basically are going to hold the motherboard up. So let's go back. There we go. I already know where these go, but if this is your first time installing, look at the motherboard, line up the holes on each one of these, and you just line up the holes down here. The biggest trick if you're doing this for the first time is to make sure that you count the amount of standoffs you put in, and then make sure that you put the same amount of screws in. If you do not, then you need to take the motherboard back out and then double check the standoffs to make sure you have the right one. You don't want to have a standoff sitting underneath the motherboard, just freely standing underneath there, and because that could cause a short later. You know, the machine could move during operation, and then all of a sudden it will ground out the motherboard, and you shot out a motherboard. It's not good. Is it happen all the time? No, but I've seen the mistake even from people that are professionals accidentally leave another standoff that's not supposed to be in there. So again, I know where they go, but you know, if you're unsure, again, look at the motherboard, reference the motherboard, you know, reference hole to hole, you know, everything lined up, and just put them in as you see from the motherboard. Now, if you noticed, I'm holding this from the CPU cooler. This is a stock cooler, so it doesn't really matter too much because the stock cooler is really on there. But if you have like a really heavy cooler, you may not want to hold it there. You probably should hold it, the motherboard, like this from underneath the motherboard, not from up here. This is very light, so I'm not too worried. And I know it's not going to come apart. But sometimes that's just a nice gripping handle to be able to move it around and place it. All right, so let's get the rest of the screws in. Yeah, it lines up with that one. Okay. If you're unsure about anything, of course, just recheck with the motherboard and take a look. I mean, it's right in front of you, and make sure that all the holes line up. And I'm going to show you a trick that it just make sure you have enough screws. Make sure you don't have any other weird standoffs underneath there that don't belong. Is just quickly count them up. Do not install all of them, obviously. You just install the ones that you're going to attach to. Okay. If you want, you can also take a pair of pliers and plier this down a little bit if you really want to. I've never really had a need to do that. I've never had a standoff come up. This is the I/O shield. I/O shield is going to go in place where the motherboard connectors are going to hang out through the back. So you just want to take this, carefully put it in place. The I/O shield is sharp, so if you don't know what you're doing, wear a little bit of like a protective glove or something when you're using this, because if you don't, you're going to end up cutting your finger. This is a piece that is still a piece of aluminum, but it could really cut you up because it is really sharp. So just be careful. Chatting, huh? All right. At this point, we're ready to put the motherboard in. Before you put it in, just count up your standoffs. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I should have 6 screws going into this unit, into this motherboard. So if you're going to count it back, we'll just count back to make sure we got 6. What you're going to do is line up with the I/O shield and then press into the I/O shield. And you want to make sure on the opposite side that the ports are all coming out so you can actually plug everything in. Make sure none of the metal pieces are going into the motherboard. That's a very big thing. You don't want to shock yourself. That's not good. Or you don't want to damage one of your ports. So moving on, let's screw it in. The screws that we're going to use, which I'm going to try to figure out right now, are, they're a little thicker than the regular CD-ROM screws. They're a little bit thicker than that. I'll show you guys in a second the ones I'm grabbing. I need 6. That's 4. Of course, they're all black. This does not help. 5. Where are you? Where are you? The 6th one. There you are. 6. These are the screws. They're a little... There we go. They are a little chunkier than the CD-ROM screw. So this is just a regular motherboard screw. And then if you want to look at a CD-ROM screw or something that would be like an accessory screw, would look like kind of like this. Some motherboards, maybe I can put these side by side. You can see what the difference is. It's really the thickness in the screw itself. I don't know if you guys can even see this. This is so small, but this is a very thin thread, and this is a little bit of a thicker thread. Some motherboards use the thinner thread screws. If you're not sure, you take one of the extra standoffs for the motherboard and then put the screw into it and see if it fits. If it fits without over tightening, then you know you got the right screw. If it just slips right in, then you know you got too much of a small screw. kind of common sense, but you know, just in case you don't know. Pull these screws down. Let's put these in one at a time. Now, a word of advice: when you're screwing in, make sure that you have the number. Oop, there we go. The numbers. Jesus. The number set. Come on. There we go. The number set to like 17 or a little less on the screwing, so it doesn't hammer in. You don't want anything hammering into the motherboard. It's a very bad idea. If you're unsure, just use a regular manual screwdriver. Or if it's your first time, probably best to use a manual screwdriver so you don't end up damaging anything. Where are you? There we go. The motherboard should not wobble. It should be in there pretty good. I counted out 6 screws, so I know I've got exactly 6 standoffs. I know that I don't have anything underneath it. I don't have any extra screws, which means that I have now, make sure I don't have any standoffs underneath the system, which means that you're good to go. At this point, you're ready to start plugging in things like the CPU connector. The CPU connector is way up in this corner over here. I'm not sure if you guys can see this because the light is horrible. We have a light. Not a flashlight, unfortunately, but let's maybe do a little light here. Or it's dead. Well, that sucks. All right, well, it's an 8-pin connector, and that's also labeled on this side. It's labeled CPU, so you can't make that mistake. It is labeled CPU, and it does have a split down the middle on this. Come on. There we go. It has a split, so you for an 8-pin connector, you put these together. But some motherboards only have a 4. Most newer motherboards are 8, so you just put the 8 together, and you line them back up. You line the clip up with the clip at the top, and they should only go in one way. If you're forcing it, you're doing it wrong. So maybe flip it around, or you could look at the keying on the pins, because that is keyed, so you really can't make a mistake. But I guess you can if you really push really hard. So, motherboard connector. This is 28-pin, I think. When they go to now, 28, I think. Long story short, very big connector. This just goes right into the motherboard here, on this spot right here, right below the RAM. It may be different on every motherboard. You might be in different spots. But the majority of the time it's near the RAM. So put it the right direction and push that in. Okay. At this point, there is a case fan in the front of the case over here. Yeah, there we go. Oh, there we go. There's a case fan up here. So I'm just going to plug that case fan in. It's a 3-pin connector. It's the same type of, kind of like the same type of connector for the CPU fan. Most of the CPU fans are 4-pin. Most of the case fans are usually 3 or 4-pin, depending upon, again, the type of case that you have. Now, we've got options on this motherboard. Yeah. You get a system fan down here. You get a system fan back here. Since it's in the front of the case, just go to the closest one and connect it. If it's a 3-pin, make sure it hovers over the 3-pin. Again, it's only keyed one way, so you really should just snap in the correct direction. It should glide in easily. All right, front panel connectors. So at the current time, we can now go to front panel connectors. And if you don't really care, you can just take that off a little easily. There we go. And let's see, I usually separate them out a little bit. I separate the small cables from the more thicker cables. At this point, this is starting to get a little bit messy with wires. So what I usually do is I start to do a little bit of cable management. I'm going to start doing wire ties. I know some people don't want to wire tie their case or whatever, but I know there's no window to this case, which I understand that no one's probably going to see this but me. But when I go to service this computer down the road, if it's already done with wire management, then we don't need to worry about unplugging things accidentally or disconnecting things accidentally. It also makes it easier to clean out because you can easily tap the wires and clean off the dust. Where if you don't cable manage, you end up accidentally maybe unplugging something, tugging something a little too hard, or the cable maybe might get caught in a fan, which happens a lot. And then you just go down for a service call for literally moving a cable out of a fan. So it's really bad. It's just a waste of money in that aspect. And it's annoying because then you hear that little rubbing noise, which is really annoying. So at this point, we're ready to install the front panel connectors. Okay, the front panel connectors are power switch, hard drive light, reset switch. Sometimes some people have a reset. This one has a reset, and that's it. Power LED, HDD LED, the power switch, and the reset switch. The switches don't matter on the direction. The LEDs do. The LEDs are positive, negative. They are labeled here. I don't think you guys are ever going to be able to see this on this camera, that they're labeled power LED, positive, negative, positive, negative. The positives usually are color, and the negatives are usually one color, like white, which in this case it happens to be white. If you have all black cables, those are the ones I prefer anyway, instead of this ketchup mustard mess. They will still be labeled on the actual switch here, the little pinout. Sorry, not the switch. I'm sorry, the pinout. And that pinout basically says plus, negative, so you can know that this is the red is positive, the white is negative. Let's plug these in. I know where they go. Now, if you don't know where they go, reference El Manuel, and it should be in here with proper listing. Of course, they've gotten cheaper and they don't have it. So you can look it up online, or you could just look at the motherboard, because the motherboard does have a little, some motherboards have it written. This one actually has it written. But if it's not visible enough for you, you can go on the online and you can go to download the PDF of the manual, and it'll definitely have it in there. Reset. Where are you? Reset switch. Again, the switches don't matter on the positive and negative. It's only the LEDs that make a difference. You can't really damage an LED by putting it reverse. It will still, it just won't work. It'll just not light up. If you're unsure, flip it, and then you got it the right way, hopefully. At this point, I want to cable manage a little bit, so I'm going to take this and tie this up a little. I try to match black ties with black systems. If you're using more of a white system or whatever, you can use white ties, or you could just put clear ones on. It really doesn't matter for this type, because honestly, this doesn't have a window again, so no one's really going to see this except you. So not a problem. But if you do have a window, spend 20 minutes and actually do cable management, please. I hate when I see a windowed computer that someone's done by themselves, and then it just looks like a spider mess of garbage, and then you want to do any diagnostics, you can't figure it out because You're not even sure if the wires are going in the right spots. Then you now need to take all the wires back out and then retrace them and make sure they're going to the right areas. Mostly in a computer, it's not that big of a deal. You know, it's usually not that hard to find out if you've done something wrong. But it's still nicer to be able to just manage it. And now if you have RGB, like RGB fans, or any like really colorful fans, those things take up a lot more cables. You're going to drive yourself nuts cable managing that. I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, some people like the RGB lighting. If you like it, more power to you. It doesn't make your system go any faster, as much as people keep telling everybody that. You know, it doesn't make any faster. It's still the same slow system that it's going to be anyway, with or without RGB. You know, if you want to upgrade. You know, spend some money on real parts like CPU, graphic card, hard drive, RAM. You know. But again, it's your taste. If you like that stuff, then fine. I just forgot to put that one on there. I didn't realize I was going with that. All right, whatever. Oh, forgot the other panel connectors. So I got more up here. These are your USB and front audio. USB 3.0. This is your USB 2.0. And that is your audio. This case happens to have a USB 2.0 and 3.0 connector. Some do not. Yeah, it's on the opposite side of the case, but it's there. I'll show you guys when I'm done. So 3.0 header, obviously these don't fit in any other connection besides the ones that it's supposed to connect to. So your 3.0 header has like these little pins. This one has a little bit bigger pins, and the audio is kind of the same, but it's a different keying. Yeah, it's a different key. There's a 1 block missing out of this right corner. This one's missing a block out of the middle. So 3.0 connector goes to the 3.0 connector on the motherboard. Right here. If I can plug it in. There we go. 3.0 connector on the motherboard. There's going to be a lot of cable left over. I don't know why this case has such long cables. USB. Again, just block it out. Just figure out which one's to block. Plug it into the USB header. It is labeled USB. I recommend you plug it into USB 1, but you can plug it into USB 2. It'll work just the same. Front audio is labeled F audio, which is front audio. Any self-respecting person would not use the front audio. The front audio on a system sucks. It's not all that great. I mean, unless you just want to listen to a podcast or something, that's probably fine. But if you want to listen to any good quality music, you would not use the front audio connectors. All right, so this is a real mess. Let me just get the cabling in more of an order here. I'm going to just ravel everything up the way I want it. Let's turn this back this way. You could use more ties, by the way. Don't feel afraid to use ties. I just like to kind of minimize the amount that I use, but all of my technicians will tell me totally different. They will yell at me for saying that I use like 90 ties for something that I can do in like 2. You know what though? The case looks good. The power, you know, the cable management looks good. What does it matter? It's a few ties. It's not the end of the world. So if you're afraid, just use some more. I mean, these things are like less than a penny a piece. These are like a penny for like 100, almost, it feels like. So just go for it. Even in small quantities, these are okay, you know. Tie it. Tie it tight. And these are going to push back. By the way, why I'm pushing all this back is because I have to put a graphic card in still. And I don't want these wires to be touching the graphic card. So push it down and back. And yeah. Ooh, it's a little hot in here today. come into an office on a Saturday, the system automatically shuts the air cooling off for like every few hours. And you end up sweating, wondering, why did I come in on a Saturday? But best time to do this. All right, so that's all pushed down. I'm happy with that. It's not really, I hate these things. All right, let me just put this one more time on this. All right, one more tie. All right, and cutter. All right. I'm just gonna tuck this a little bit closer or underneath the motherboard. If you tuck it underneath the motherboard, just be careful that there's no pins on the opposite side. It's okay if you just give it a little bit wiggle underneath there. Just make sure there's no pins on the opposite side and you're okay. This motherboard happens to not have pins on the other side, I already know. But if you're not sure, don't do it then. Just move it off to the side and deal with just the cable mess a little bit. I like to just basically get all the cables as much out of the way as possible, without going too crazy. And of course, this is way more nuts than anybody should really go on a case that you don't have a window. So I like to untangle everything, just get this up in the right spot. That's going to go this way. This is going to go up here. I like to get the main cables out of the way just so when I go to put the graphic card in, I have plenty of room. And usually the graphic card is the thing that we upgrade over time. Most of the time, you're not going to see someone change a CPU. If they do change a CPU, it's going to be a change of a CPU and a motherboard or something like that. So the graphic card, you need to leave a little slack. And everything else, you don't really need slack. These are the motherboard cables. This is for the CPU for the motherboard and for the main motherboard connection, the big connection. I'm going to tuck this up into the CD-ROM area. There are no CD-ROMs installed for this machine. So it's a great place to just store cables at the top, so I just kind of throw things up there. If they do have a CD-ROM, then you can go a little underneath that. Then you would put this bar back in place and then tie that, put this bar back in place and then tie it to the bar. But right now I'm putting everything up here. So, because it's just empty space, so it's the best spot for it. Graphic card is going to go next. Where did I put it? I put it over here. Okay, so just check to make sure there's no plastic little pull tab thingies, which there is not, which luckily I don't have to worry about that. We'll just leave that there. If you're unsure of the slottage, you can just look at the tabs up here at the top. Oops, this way. You look at the tabs at the top, and those tabs will tell you how many slots. So if you got 2 screw holes, it's probably going to be 2 tabs. So, and by tabs I mean these blanks that are in the back. There's probably a more official name for this garbage, but blank slots, blank holders, whatever. Pull the 2 slots. These are the blanks. If you're going to change graphic cards down the road or whatever, it's probably good to keep these, but or just keep them off to the side, because these are also white, which is not every case is white. Most of them are black, so you might want to do that before you install. Right here, this is a protective cover for the PCI Express slot. Be sure to remove that. Do not install that with that in there. So take the little cover off, put it off to the side. At this point, you can leave these in if you want. You're gonna have to take them out eventually anyway. So if you know it's a dual monitor system and you're going to be putting 2 monitors on it anyway. Take them out now. It's easier than putting them into the slot and then taking them out. It's a little harder to get them out when you got them already in the computer slot. So in the slot itself, can we go this way? Go this way a little bit. There we go. The slot itself, just make sure the little security clip is back in the slot. So you want to make sure that that goes backwards. If that's all backwards, then you're ready to slot the card. So at this point, just let's slot the card. To slot the card, you just basically line it up with the slots in the front of the back of the case, I'm sorry. And you just look down at the PCI Express slot, make sure that you're in the slot before you push down, and it should click right in place. It should not really take that much force. If you are putting a lot of force, you are doing it wrong. Check to make sure that you're not blocking something. Make sure that that clip is the right direction. If you have a very long card, it may be blocked over on this side of the case, you know. So at that point, you may want to check over there and just take a quick look and see if something is blocking it. Pop it in. Should go down. Shouldn't require much force. You should hear click, and it should just click back in place. Now you got to put the 2 screws back in here. So wherever I put those, over here, these are thumb screws. You can put them in with a thumb if you want. I do too many systems a day. I'm not going to sit there with my thumbs running that in there. So, but you could do it if you want. You can use your thumbs if you have thumb screws. Use regular screws. It really doesn't matter. Just as long as there's something holding it, it should be fine. Second word of advice here. This is a small card, so there's no problem with what they call GPU sag. Okay, GPU sag happens when you have a way too long of a card and there's not enough support going across the card. So it's like they'll be just really heavy on the other side and it'll start to droop down in the case. If that happens, they sell brackets if you really want to buy a bracket. They even sell brackets with RGB if you really want, you know. Or you could just, you know, there's a lot of solutions online, but there's also a solution with tightening up the bolts up in the front over here. You can actually use like a one of these behind it, which will add a little extra stability underneath the second slot that's not really used. I think it's second slot? Yeah, second slot's not used. So you could just put these underneath and it'll give it a little bit more oomph to put it back up. I personally don't like this method. Just buy a bracket. Don't be cheap. Spend like a whopping $10 and get a cheap bracket for your GPU, especially if you have a GPU that long. If you have a GPU that long, you're probably spending at least $1,000 on it. Don't cheap out. Just get one. Very simple. Especially if it starts to sag down. If it doesn't start to sag, then just leave it. You know, I mean, you know, there's no problem. Plug this in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the second one, so I can use that if I need to put a higher end graphic card in. We don't have to redo the cable. What am I doing? Just going to tie this back. I tie this so it's just further away from the fans. There's fans on this side of the card, on this opposite, sorry. Fans on this side of the card. So I want to make sure all the cables are going up and away from the fans, especially the small fans on the GPU. The reason why is because also a GPU fan may not spin until it gets hot. So if you're not doing any testing on your computer, you may not even know there's a problem until like you hit a really big load on the computer, and then all of a sudden that fan's going to spin up and you're going to get, you know, a really bad noise. It's going to grind against your power cord or whatever you have connected in there. All right, closed, clip, there we go. Clip. All right, so at this point, I think we're ready for a boot test. We can actually boot this thing. Okay, so there's also extra cables. If you saw, there's a whole lot of cables here. What I usually do, I don't hand these, don't put these in a bag somewhere and you're gonna lose them. Tie them up, put them up in like your CD-ROM area, or, you know, in this case we happen to have a metal piece here. I usually just tie it to the back of this metal piece and put it in place so that the cables go with the machine. You don't want to lose your cables, because especially if you have a modular power supply. If you don't have a modular power supply, this doesn't apply to you. So you don't have to worry about this. But if you have a modular power supply, all the cables should be with the unit. Do not put it on like what I'm about to do, which is just put it on a table over here, which is a bad idea. Because if you lose those, you will be in deep garbage. So, manual, put the manuals. I'm just putting like a whole bunch of stuff on that side right now, just to kind of separate my stuff out. If you're looking for a resale value of your computer, you can actually just keep the boxes. I'd keep the boxes if you want to have resale value, because you know you may want to reship this one part or two parts. But if you're just going to replace the unit over time anyway, don't bother, just throw the boxes out. Well, recycle them, you know. All right. So we're ready for a boot. And I think I'm going to put the last metal piece in really quickly. So I'm just going to put this down here. And let me just put one more tie on there. All right. Just tie down this way. Yeah, I'm going to put one more tie. Two more ties. And I can... Come. Put them together. Put this tie down. Tie this one to the other one. Okay. I'm just tying the branches together so they're nice and tight, all in one piece. Everything is away from the graphic card. Just push that way a little bit, away from the fans, and one more clip of that, and then we're ready for a boot test, which I am going to grab a power cord, because I did not put a power cord over here. I apologize. Let me go grab a power cord really quick. Oh yeah. Okay, power cord. Let me just plug it in. I think I have an outlet over here. Okay. All right. All right. So, at this point, we're ready for a power test. You could test this way, downwards, upwards. It doesn't matter. Just don't move it while it's on. You know, just to be safe. Probably can move it. It'll probably be fine. Oh, this power supply also comes with a. It's for really water cooling. This is for like if you're doing a custom loop or something like that. You need to turn the power supply on with the pump on, but without actually being connected to a motherboard. So this will power the power supply on. So if you connect that to the motherboard and turn on the power supply, it'll automatically turn on without having the connection. This is not really needed most of the time unless you're doing something with a water cooling. And then it came with a floppy connector. I don't know who has floppies anymore. All right, moving on. We're ready to power it up. Let me see, what else do I need? Keyboard and mouse. Keyboard, and your mouse. Mouse. No mouse. Need a mouse. Be right back, let me grab a mouse. And we have a mouse. A mouse with a house. House with a mouse. That is not a mouse. You know what? Let me just grab the mouse from the other one. Let's grab a mouse from here. Ooh, there you go. I'm just going to steal my other mouse. You know, eventually I'll get a set that works, that has everything in it that I will need so I don't have to keep running around like a chicken with his head cut off. All right, so plug everything in. This is just keyboard, mouse, video, keyboard. I have a keyboard here. Why do I have this wrapped up? Keyboard, mini keyboard. All right, look at this one. Yeah, over there. All right, this over there. Pull the knife so I don't kill myself. Okay, there we go. And here we go. Keyboard. And if I can get it the right way. Why do I always put the damn thing in the wrong direction? All right, keyboard. I just have a half keyboard here. Just a regular small keyboard. Obviously, you would use probably a more professional keyboard, a little bit bigger. You'd probably want buttons. Power. And, yeah, we got power, cool. Alrighty. Oh, graphics. That would help. Okay, you would need HDMI. Obviously, you plug it into your graphic card if you have a graphic card. If you don't have a graphic card, then you would plug it into your motherboard. Graphic card is obviously the card that you just slotted, but if it's not going into here, you would have one on your board, on your motherboard directly, and you would just use that. All right, so we're ready to power on. Hopefully everything turns on. Oh, let me switch to camera 4 here, and then turn that on for me. So this is the post screen. So hopefully you'll be able to actually see it post if I didn't break it. Oh, power button's on the other side. That would, okay, so now I gotta put this up. Power button. All right. Oh, yeah. Hopefully there we go. Are we going to boot? There we go. So, we're booted. So at this point, what we need to do is we need to load a bunch of stuff. It's all the software pretty much, except for the firmware, which is the BIOS. We would always load the newest BIOS because with the newest generation of processors coming out, the motherboard manufacturers don't have a lot of time to manufacture, to play with the new processors. It's best to always upgrade your BIOS right when you first do it. Should I go over a BIOS flash? Probably a good idea, because this would be a good idea to do this. We're probably going to do a whole separate video on this, just so people know what to do. But let me get, I should be ready for these things more often. What flash drive. My flash drives are always missing. I have 1.5 billion of these, and I still misplace them. Alrighty. There we go. Okay. All right. We'll do 2 other videos with obviously doing your BIOS update. You're gonna need Windows to load. Right now though, I'm gonna do a quick BIOS, and I'm gonna just download the quick one from online, which I can just use another laptop really quickly. Not a very exciting thing, but we have Windows 10 on this one. Neat. So I don't have to do that. All right, delete. This one has the wrong flash on it. Boot manager, EFI, delete. Okay, so let me go over to Let's see here. Delta for that. Okay. So, okay. So if I flip over to camera 3 here, you'll see my screen. My screen base. Oh, let me put myself back up. There we go. All right. So let me put this up here. Let me get the program big so I can see what I'm looking at. There we go. All right. So I already have Windows 10 on here, but I need more drivers. So I'm going to go open up another tab here. Oh, but that'll be all. And we go to Google. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the motherboard model number. Oh, if I had it in front of me. Why would I not have it in front of me? Oh, here we go. So you can go back to the box, you can go back to the motherboard, whatever. In this case, we're going to look up Gigabyte H610M S2H DDR4 download. Now, I've downloaded this before. Okay, so if you go here, you go to revision 1, I think it is. It is revision. If you're unsure, check the box. Revision 1.1, and this is why we check the box. So it says revision 1 support. We click on this first, and it'll probably bring me over to 1.1. I hope. Yeah, revision 1.1, 1.3. Okay. Make sure you're on the right revision. Revision 1. There we go. So we're now on revision 1. Go to support. Any day now. Support. There we go. Okay, so it's going to show you all the downloads. What you really want is the BIOS first. So we're going to open up BIOS. It's kind of in backwards order. I'm going to jump back over to the other screen for a second. And we're going to check what version we have. Which we have version FE. It's in the upper left corner there. So FE is what we have. FE. That's not even on here. You lie. Do you lie? FE. This is a little weird. So, okay. It says revision FE, which is odd. Maybe it's 1.3. Maybe 1.2? Here's FE. Okay. So it's a different screen. Of course, Gigabyte's going to be a pain. There is a new one, though. So FE is right here. And there's a new one above it, which just came out March of this year. This year, yeah. So download this. This is FFA. Download. Open. And I'm just going to extract that. Oh, come on. Let me close this for a second. Close that. And let me get this. Just going to drag it over to the main part of the drive. This is my flash drive. I'm just extracting it. It's nothing really fancy. All right, so I'm just extracting that. That's the actual flash file. So we're going to take that off, and we're going to connect it up to the new unit. Let me put myself back on here. Also, oh, you know what? I'm going to switch 4. Okay, so obviously we have BIOS version FE. We're going to now switch this to the new version. Before you update any BIOS, you really should First of all, you got to plug it into the back of the unit. Don't plug it into the front part of the unit, just in case one of those front connectors have a problem. The one in the back usually is the best one to use. Just use any USB port in the back. Should be fine. I'll plug that drive in. And now I am going to go to advanced mode because I can't stand this other mode. There we go. What we're going to do is we're going to do Q flash. Now that's F8 down here, okay? Or you could just click Q flash. Most BIOSes now have a mouse, so it should be a little easier to work with. If you don't have a mouse, use the keyboard. I mean, you know, it'll tell you what feature you want to use. Now we're going to flash this. Now the warning I have, which you don't see here, is I have a UPS battery that this is connected to. If you're going to flash your BIOS, make sure you have some sort of backup battery. Don't do this during a lightning storm or something. But even worse, don't have, you know, if you have a backup battery, this is the better choice to go with. Just in case you lose power, you won't brick your motherboard. Okay, so this is really dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing, maybe you might want to stop at this point and just load Windows and not load the newest BIOS, but you're not going to get the newest features. So I would recommend that you do flash. We're going to update the BIOS, but make sure you're on a battery backup, or just on stable power is okay too, but the battery is the better choice to go with. All right, update. We're going to select the file off the flash drive. It's going to automatically find the flash drive. Now, if you have Windows installed, it may find multiple drives. That's what this little drop down is. That will show you the other drives. I don't have Windows loaded, so it's only come up with the drive that has data on it, which is, in this case, is the USB drive. If you're unsure, unplug your drive and then just plug in a flash drive, because it'll only come up to that then. Select this, move next. Are you sure? It's always going to ask you, are you sure? At this point, double check, make sure the weather's good. You know, don't do this during the middle of a lightning storm. Hit yes. It's going to update, it's going to verify, and then it's going to say press to start. Okay, it's going to tell you it's going to shut down. This is normal. By the way, if you noticed, it'll say update BIOS in the left corner here. It'll tell you what version you're going to, what version you were previously on, and where you're going. Make sure it's right. Hit OK. System's going to power off for a second. Don't get freaked out. It'll reboot. Once it's rebooted, it will start the update process. There you go, verifying. Leave the USB drive plugged in. Do not take that out. Let it do its whole thing and then take the USB drive out. And when you're done. So during this whole process, leave it plugged in. And now we wait. What fun. It's going to take a little bit of time. During this time, you might want to get coffee, if you drink coffee. All right, it's not going to take that long, probably. It's going pretty quick. 53, 54. All right. 54. 56. 57. This is not very fun. This is like watching paint dry. Almost. All right, almost there. 60. I gotta get music on here, man. This is really boring. Well, it's like watching progress bars. It's just not much fun. I guess this is why a lot of other people just stop at this step. 63, 64. Okay, come on. 66. This isn't my way. I will just leave it. By the way, don't touch the computer while it's doing this. You probably shouldn't move it around. just in case, so you just don't worry about like tripping on the power cord or flipping something off or turning something off. That would be really bad, especially during this process. 89, 90, almost there. 92. Any day now. 97. And BIOS is updated. It'll reboot again. Just let it go. Reboot. All right. What I'm doing is hitting the delete key just to go into the BIOS. Hopefully it'll bring me back to the BIOS, or it might just start loading. Nope. Still doing its thing. I should probably take my thing off there. It's annoying. Delete. Did I hit delete? What am I on? Oh, this is the shell. That's not good. All right, so let me flip. Let me take this other thing off so I can see what the hell's on the screen. Oop. And let me turn myself off. Okay, so this is not very exciting. This is just the shell, but we don't want the shell, so we're gonna exit. Don't even. Nope, not gonna type, huh? There we go. Exit that. Reboot. All right, you know what? Just Control Alt Delete. All right, refresh. I didn't have the keyboard plugged in all the way. That would help. Let me turn myself back on here. We go into the BIOS. Do F7 here. No, that's the load defaults. What's advanced? F2. F2 advanced. Let me turn myself off here for a second so you guys can see everything. So favorites, not a really big deal. You really want to just double check all the rest of the settings in the BIOS. So you want to make sure your performance settings are set. You want to make sure, with this memory, I happen to use XMP, so we're going to turn that on. We're going to try to do it. Profile 1, double check to make sure the RAM is correct. The RAM is at DDR4 3200. That is the speed of the RAM that I have purchased. So that should be correct. If it doesn't come up correct, you may need to repunch in values properly to get it to work. If your RAM is, I don't want to say cheaper, but if your RAM is not that great, it's not going to perform as well here. You may not get the full 3200 out of it. If you happen to crash with XMP on, just turn it off and then just run without it, because obviously your RAM can't support with it on that motherboard. Secure boot we don't need. We'll just leave it on standard. Pretty much all the settings, all the other settings I kind of leave auto unless we're overclocking. And in that case, if we're overclocking, we're doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And that's a whole nother live stream, because overclocking is really difficult to do. Well, it's not totally difficult to do. It's just a lot of patience and time. And most of the time, it's also, you could damage your equipment and stuff like that. So if you don't know what you're doing with that, I would stay away from it. Or if you want just a really, you know, just a system that works properly, you don't want to have to deal with that. PCI slot first, yes, that's the proper thing because we have a graphic card. Audio, all this stuff looks okay. I just go into the I/O and make sure to turn off the serial port because we don't need that. Everything else I think is standard. Yeah, pretty much. It's, yeah, we don't have any SATA drives, but I leave them enabled anyway just in case if we plug in or upgrade a drive or add a drive later, we don't have to forget where that is. The date and time are way off. It's always off by 1 day. 25, 22. Anybody know what that is? All right, time is, oh, what the, I can't read that. Why is my clock not on here? Okay, so we're at 17:54. Yeah, around about 5 o'clock. All right. So that's good. We're ready to boot. Just double check booting. Make sure that the Kingston drive, well, this is my USB drive, is plugged in, ready to go. So we hit save and exit. It's going to save, reboot. I always set the date and time before I go into Windows, before you start loading Windows. And the reason why we start doing that is because you don't want to load Windows without the date and time set already. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to end up with a lot of problems. So, especially when it comes to activation. So better to just have it running. Let me go back to number 4. Let me turn myself on here. Why are we booting to this? No, I didn't want the shell. Oh, did I screw up my USB drive? Maybe I did. Yep. Yeah, that's what I think I did. Let me see if I can get it to boot with this. If I can't, I'll pull that drive for a sec. Let me just quickly see if we have Windows on here or not. That's supposed to have Windows. Okay, we don't have Windows. That's no good. All right, well, we'll have to do Windows another time because that's going to take a long time to load up a USB disk for that. But this is a good first live stream. I think I'm going to cut it here. Well, it was great seeing you guys. Not really seeing you. I guess you guys are seeing me. But yeah, we're basically at a stopping point at this point. I'm going to load up Windows, and then the next section is pretty much I can't really show on stream anyway, which is loading up the client's software at that point. It's very proprietary to their stuff, so we can't do that, unfortunately. But we'll be back with another live stream. Subscribe, like, do all those wonderful things that you guys normally do. And I will see you guys soon. Have a great day.